Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of The Dog Therapist. I'm Craig and this is obviously Nellie in her little training vlog. Now, this week I want to share with you the 4 golden rules of how to train any dog. Doesn't matter if it's a big dog like a German Shepherd or a Cane Corso or a tiny little dog like a Chihuahua. Whatever breed you've got, these 4 golden rules will be the same for every single breed. Alright, so golden rule number 1, and this is my golden rule, just the best golden rule ever. Without this golden rule, you will never ever be able to train your dog. So whatever bad behaviour that you don't correct, your dog will think that you think it's okay to do. Let me say it again for you. Whatever bad behaviour that you don't correct, your dog in their little brain will think that you think that all that behaviour that they're doing is okay to do. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you with Nellie. Okay, so let me show you with Nellie. Now, if I give Nellie a command now, Nellie come, Nellie sit, I'm going to try and make Nellie to go wrong. Nellie come over here, sit down, sit. Typically she's doing as she's told, but if Nellie now was, when I told Nellie to sit, and she kept running around me like 3 or 4 times, and then after 3 or 4 times of running around me, she then decided that she'd sit down, and I let her get away with that, guess what happened? In her little brain then, what Nellie would think is, she'd think, oh, every time he tells me to sit down, I can run around him 3 or 4 times, and then I can then decide when I want to sit down, and because he's not corrected it, that must mean it's okay. Does that make sense? So when you give a dog a command, what you've got to do is, you've got to let the dog make a decision. They make a good decision and do as they're told, or they make a bad decision and they ignore you. So you can't have something where you give a dog a command and it takes them about 30 or 40 seconds to actually do the command, because if you do that and you don't correct it, then inside your dog's little brain, what they'll do is, they'll think that that behaviour that they're doing is the correct behaviour to do because you're not correcting it. So that's golden rule number 1. Okay everybody, golden rule number 2. And this is like a common sense rule. If you've tried to correct your dog and it hasn't worked, and you say, I've done that, but it just doesn't work, I've done that, but it just doesn't work, I've tried this, I've tried that, but it just doesn't work, then what you really need to do is, you need to step back out of the situation and go, well, hang on a minute, I may have tried it, but I haven't done it correctly. Because when you correct the dog in a correct manner, it will always work. If you don't read the dog and watch the dog, because it could be that the dog is just simply nervous. It could be that the dog is a little bit apprehensive and you've not read that properly with the dog. And if you don't then tailor the way that you correct the dog towards them being a little bit nervous or a little bit apprehensive, then it's never going to work. So, golden rule number 2 is you've got to make sure that, hello Nellie, oh, you're coming for a little cuddle, aren't you? Yes, I know. That you've got to make sure that when you correct the dog, you do it properly, because the reason why it isn't working is because you've not corrected it correctly. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say that you're doing a recall with your dog, and you're calling your dog's name and it doesn't come back, it doesn't come back, it doesn't come back, and I know what it's like. Training dogs is so frustrating that it makes you want to pull your hair out. I mean, it really does. So you're calling your dog and you're calling your dog and nothing's happening, it's totally ignoring you, and then maybe 2, 3 or 4 minutes later, the dog then comes back to you. What do you do then? The thing that most people do when that dog comes back to them is they get really angry with the dog, because they're like, I can't believe that you haven't come back to me, and they're telling it off, and the dog then, in his brain or her brain, the dog does one thing. The dog associates then, every time it comes back to you and you fall out with it, it's never going to come back to you. So what you've got to do is, this is what I mean now about golden rule number 2. You've got to correct things correctly. If your dog didn't come back to you, you've called it and called it and called it and called it and called it, that all you do is you put that dog then on the lead and you take the dog back to where it was when you originally first called its name. Isn't that right, Nellie? Yeah. So you take the dog back to where you originally first called its name, and you then discipline it, tell it off in the area when you first called its name, and then literally put it on the lead, and then call its name and say, come, 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 and get it to come to you from that area then. And that's what you do. So it's really important that if your dog isn't listening to what you're saying and you correct the problem incorrectly, then you're going to then cause more of a problem for yourself. Hope that all makes sense? So that's golden rule number 2. Okay guys, golden rule number 3. If you don't communicate properly with your dog, it will never, ever, ever learn how to behave. Promise you. You've got to communicate with your dog on dog language. That's what you've got to do. If you try to communicate with your dog how a human would communicate, it's never going to work. Dogs have to know and understand that there's rules and regulations, there's terms and conditions of how we want them to behave. And the only way for you to communicate that is you've got to talk to them or communicate with them or show them or teach them in a way that a dog understands. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so what do I mean then about communicating with a dog? How many people do you know that when you're out and about around town or when you go to people's houses, that you will see that person talking to the dog as if they're a human? And they'll say the dog's name and they'll go, Nelly, come on, just be a good girl now, stop jumping up people, because the more you jump up people, the more it's annoying and it's getting me all upset. I just need you to just be a good girl, I just need you just to sit down. Look how Nelly's behaving, I talk like this. I mean, I just need you to be just a good girl and sit down, because this is all that's all I want you to do, just be a good girl for me and that's it. Now, what do you think the dog understands when you talk like that? The dog understands absolutely zero of what you're saying because they can't talk the human language, they can't talk English language, can they? They only know dog language. A dog knows this. So it's really, really easy how to communicate with a dog and to give them guidelines and terms and conditions of how they should behave. So, if Nelly now was running around or she was doing something naughty, yeah. First thing I do, by the way, is always pop them on the lead, on this little, on the little training lead, and the link will be in the description of the video again. So I come down like this now, and this is how dogs understand things, how you communicate with them. So you give them guidelines. So I would get the lead, I'd go, hey, sit down. You stay there. As soon as they sit down, they do as they're told. What do you do? Good girl. Oh, she's a good girl. Good girl. Yes. Dogs understand that. They understand, no. And then they understand, what a good girl. Yes, I know, what a good girl. That's what dogs understand. They understand a voice that goes, blah, 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 and then they understand a voice that's all happy and it's all excited. It's like, oh, what a good girl. Yes, I know, what a good girl you are. So, let me show you what I mean. I'll try and make Nelly now to get excited, and I'll show you then what I mean by how then you show the dog that there's rules and regulations of how they should behave. Oh, Nelly, come on then, come on. Shh, shh. Now, can you see how she's jumping up? Shh, shh. Sit down. Good girl. What a good girl. Good girl. What a good girl. So straight away, I've showed her rules and regulations of how she should behave. Good. See? Good girl. What a good girl. What a good girl. Once you can communicate properly with the dog by using your voice and a tiny little tug on the lead, then the dog understands. It understands and it goes, hang on, See, straight away? Good girl. Good girl. What a good girl. The dog then understands and gets it. They know then what is expected of them, because you're making it simple. Because what you're doing is you're going, well, if you do this behaviour, I'll go and use that type of voice. But if you do this behaviour, then I'll tell you what a good boy or a good girl you are. I'll tip you under your tummy and I'll tip you under your chin and give you a little fuss. So, makes sense? You've got to communicate the way with the dog, how a dog will understand. And then you'll then progress much, much quicker and much, much further with your training. Really, really easy. Okay, rule number 4. Dogs even this one, can be crafty little monkeys. They can be sneaky little monkeys. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you want your dog to sit down and you tell them to sit down, they sit down, but they shuffle about a little bit and they take 2 or 3 little paces forward, something like that. And if you don't correct that, inside the dog's head, they'll go, ha, I got away with that. 1 point for me, big fat 0 for them. If you do it again and again and again and again for all different things in your training, and you don't correct it when the dog takes you on and starts to be a little sneaky little monkey, then they're going to build up lots and lots of points on a tally chart inside their head. And then what will happen is then it'll just snowball and snowball and snowball, and then they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the next thing you know, that dog you had that was under control will be out of control. And the things that you could get them to do, you won't be able to get them to do because you've not noticed the tiny little things that they've been pushing and pushing and pushing and getting away with. So, rule number 4, keep a good eye out and a watch, because dogs can be sneaky, crafty little monkeys. And you need to make sure that if they try and push the guidelines, then you've got to come down and say, come on, you need to move yourself back to where I originally sat you, where I originally sat you down. So, rule number 4, don't forget, sneaky little cheeky monkeys. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed the 4 golden rules. Don't forget, if you're struggling with your dog and you're having a total nightmare, there's 3 different ways that we can help you. The first way is that we can come to see you on a one-to-one basis at your home. The second way is we do online coaching where you send us videos via WhatsApp of how your dog's behaving. I coach you that way via WhatsApp, and we get some great results that way. The third way is that if you live close to Newcastle-under-Lyme in Staffordshire, we are holding dog and puppy classes, and they're only £20 a class, that's it. For all of those 3 ways that we can help, just pop on over to thedogtherapist.co.uk. And don't forget, I'm going to say it again, please like and subscribe, because it does loads of great things, and whatever it does, but it does good stuff anyway. And if you've liked the video, just give it a little thumbs up. And me and Nelly will see you guys all on the next video, so stay safe and look after yourselves.